all. Welcome to the DPW meeting for October 29th. Need a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Evelyn, Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. All right, I'll let you start with the agenda there.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with Parks and Recs, and I'll turn it over to Paul.
Okay, which I'll turn it over to Justin Gagno, Saratoga North Creek Railway, for their update.
Thank you, Paul.
Monthly.
And here now? Okay. I apologize, I have a cold. I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. Through the month of September and October, our fall ridership was very strong. We were seeing a 700 plus average for the weekends. We ended our regular season on October 17th and 18th with the festival at Hadley Luzerne Station. That saw just over 800 plus passengers. I want to thank the Hadley Business Association for their participation in that event. We have 1,000 tons of stone left to bring down from Tahaz for this fall, and we have an emergency preparation training event on November 6th, which we're coordinating with Operation Lifesaver, the Federal Rail Administration, and local emergency organizations. That's all I have for today.
Anybody have any questions, Justin? I have one comment, Justin. I have a check here. I called you about it. This check here is Luzerne Chamber, Hadley Business Association and Lake Luzerne Chamber of Commerce in the town of Lake Luzerne. We sold 196 tickets for you on that train ride, and this is the check that goes to the railroad. If you want to come up and get it. All right, Jeff. Thank you.
Chairman, the next item, just an update, is we have the bridge dedication for the Sergeant Christie A. Roberts Bridge. Spoke with the family. This is an invite that they had provided. I think they've sent an invite to each board member, and I know there are some other dignitaries coming to speak for that. So that is September 14th at 1 o'clock. It'll be
November.
right on. I'm sorry. Yes, November. Thank you, Paul. At 1 o'clock, and that'll be right at the bridge site off of Route 149.
Referrals and pending items.
Referrals, I don't know that we've gotten, how far we've gotten on the consent to cross our rails with the tanker trucks. I don't know if Martin has communicated with Jeff or Paul, or I don't know where that stands.
I think that's on hold right now.
It's currently, well, it's in the works.
Okay.
I think Martin's got to make another phone call, if I recall correctly.
Okay. The next item, Up Yonder had the event Trunk or Treat, October 24th, just reporting that it was very successful. They had 331 participants, and I think that eclipsed last year by maybe 10 or 20, and I think in the next couple of years it'll probably be even more. That's a free event Up Yonder, and it was well received. The next item, we stocked 3,344 salmon in Lake George. We do this annually. It's a cooperative between ourselves and the DEC. They come and give us 3,000 salmon in June, which are about 7 inches, and then we stock them in Lake George later, where they're bigger. And the idea is that they'll things won't prey on them as much. Their mortality will, be low. They do tests to see if they survived also. I don't have that information. So we do this every year, 3,000 salmon. Just reporting on that. That's it.
Any questions to Paul? All right. Any privilege to the floor on anything on Parks and Recs? Yes, sir. Get up and state your name, please.
My name's Kurt Austin, and as you know, I've been pursuing the possibility of having the core of the first wilderness core to be a bike trail or a multi-use trail. I have a few items. One just purely as a matter of interest to you, as part of our effort, we arranged to have a counter installed on the bikeway, right over there. And, it's a fancy counter, and it's being done by Parks and Trails New York. They know how to do these sorts of things, and the standard is extrapolation software. So it works out to, at that location, you can expect, annual users of 75,840. Now, that's just at that location. I've done some estimates, and that end up meaning, the estimate for use of the bikeway as a whole is, I think, at least 134,000 users a year. So, a count of the bikeway usage has not been made, of course, for a long time. So that's interesting new information. Now, as far as the centerpiece of the First Wilderness Corridor, which a few months ago suggested might better as a bike trail or a multi-use trail, or snowmobile trail. In talking to a lot of the supervisors, not all of them, it appears that the sentiment is in the majority towards making it a trail. So I think that's a very interesting situation for you. I believe the whole board looks to you for guidance and leadership on what to do with that corridor. So I'm suggesting that maybe some action on your part would be appropriate. If we let nature take its course, I suppose that you'd be pursuing negotiations with Iowa Pacific and be presenting a proposed contract extension to the full board, which at face value, based on what I know, will not be approved. So maybe there's another choice you can make. Of course, you could go completely towards the trail and prepare a resolution voting on just converting the corridor into a trail. That seems rather drastic even for me. So, in talking to a few people, including Paul and my own supervisor and others, here's an idea I'd like to share with you. Extend the contract with the railroad for no more than 1 year. In the meantime, perform a study on the relative values of a trail versus the railroad. Also look into some of the details about maybe legal or cost situations regarding the conversion. For example, I was just talking to Paul while we were in the hall, and something I think a big factor is, let's say you decided to convert it to a trail. You would call in a rail salvage company, and they would give you a quote on not how much it would cost to remove the rails and the ties, but how much of a check, how big a check you would get, because there's a lot of value in salvage. The Tahawus extension, for example, the salvage value of those 30 miles of rather iffy track is about $1 million. So I'm guessing if you gave the go-ahead to a salvage company, in 6 months or a year, you'd have a trail. It'd be kind of rough, good for walking and mountain biking, and you'd have $2 or $3 million in the bank. There are a lot of details like that that I think you might want to study. I've studied a lot of them myself, so if anyone is curious about them, please let me know. So that's what I'm suggesting, that you at least think about what you should do, given the sentiment of the full board, and maybe adopt this plan that I've just suggested. Thank you.
Any questions? We'll take it under advisement. Thank you. Solid waste.
We're making copies for solid waste, so we can move into the
Okay.
DPW section.
All right.
Don't mind.
We'll move into DPW first before solid waste.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Before we move, I just want to say, Paul, how nice it is to have you back
Thank
at these meetings, and hopefully everything is going well, and it's a pleasure to see you here.
Thank you. Y'all too. Glad to be here.
Okay, action agenda?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. On, the first page of the agenda is a grant amendment. This is for H322 Palisades Road over Brant Lake Inlet, Bridge Project. This is an amendment to our existing grant to further design work and, right-of-way incidental work, for the bridge project. This is one that has been pending for some time as we modified the scope of the bridge. Originally, this was gonna be a rehab, bridge, and, as we got into preliminary engineering, determined quickly that it was going to be, a much more extensive repair and replacement project. So, this is our, grant amendment. The, on page 1 is the request. The grant is, currently only funded with federal share. The state is advising that the state Marchicelli share is not available at this time. Want to draw your attention to our Schedule A's, which you'll see the additional funding being provided. As I mentioned to the Budget Committee some time ago, we're kind of changing how we're advancing these funding shares, in that when the Marchicelli money is not available, in the past we were providing all 20% of the local match. Per the Treasurer's Office, they want to start accounting for the Marchicelli money up front so that it helps with their cash flow. But I just want to make sure the committee is aware of this change in procedures. We are advancing the project, assuming that the Marchicelli will be available, but there's a couple factors that impact that. The Marchicelli funding is approved each year with an annual state budget. So if there's state budget impacts, the Marchicelli funding could have shortfalls. The other thing that has occurred on some projects is any disagreements from state DOT. State DOT controls the Marchicelli funding. That is their leverage over the project sponsors being able to advance projects. So we have had issues in the past. For instance, the most recent one was Hicks Road project reconstruction. DOT was arguing that that project should have been a rehab, essentially just mill it and then pave it. After we got through design, we argued that it needed to be a full reconstruction, the subgrade, the road structure needed replacement. And there was a period of time where DOT was telling us, well, you can advance the project as that reconstruction, but you will not get Marchicelli money for it. In the end, we continued to argue our case and had a design report about 1.5 inches thick, basically proving from an engineering standpoint that the road was a reconstruction. And in the end, they agreed, and then they applied the Marchicelli funding to it. So those are our constraints with Marchicelli funding. This resolution request will advance this next grant and allow us to proceed with a full replacement on the bridge project.
Mr. Sokol, are you making the motion, sir?
Yes.
Okay, motion, Mr. Conover, you second it? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
On page 7 is a request to increase the capital project. You see the overall increase, net increase of $182,000 and change. And you'll see under section F, this is on page 7, you'll see the funding shares, $201,000 in federal share. The state Marchicelli money is not available, but this resolution request would allow the treasurer to advance that money. And then our local match is actually is overfunded at this point, because in the past we were covering Marchicelli funds as part of that local match. So we have a decrease of that local match share that's in the project that can go back to the funding source.
Mr. Conover, Ms. Wood, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
On page 8 is the consultant agreement amendment. This is for Floyd Albert Associates, and this is associated with this grant amendment. This is the additional design work and right-of-way incidental work for the next phase of the project.
Mr. Vanswell? I gotta get a new glass.
I'm moving it.
I'm moving it, very good. Pat, you second it? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Okay, on page 20 is a request to transfer funds. These are simply transferring funds from completed projects into ongoing projects. You've seen dozens and dozens of these throughout the construction season, so this is simply moving money into Umstedville Road project, which is substantially complete at this point, but still has some additional work to be done.
Bud? Conover? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
On pages 21 and 22 are requests to transfer expenses into various road projects. This is really an accounting thing that we've developed over the last few years, where we apply highway maintenance salaries to specific road projects. So we're tracking salaries and benefits for work done on actual road projects. It's really moving from one section of the budget into another. And you'll see more of these as we finalize our accounting on the various projects from this year.
Mr. Sokol? Ms. Wood? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
On page 23 is a notice of intent to fill request. I have sent this through Civil Service and HR, and I spoke with Trish and Jackie. They've approved this and forwarded it on to Paul's office. So this is a senior engineering technician position that was recently vacated when I promoted that engineering tech. The position is currently in the budget for next year, and so I'm asking to move on that backfill.
Stanslow? Ms. Frazier? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Okay, on page 24, I have an overview of the Westbrook Road area, and to include the environmental park, the Charles R. Wood Park, as well as our existing Westbrook Road, and then you'll see the section of the current parking lot. This is a pictorial of what the final configuration of that parking lot will be. And the reason I put it in here is just to really as a picture to show you as we talk about next year's parking. We have the project is under construction right now. By next spring, we will have expanded this parking lot. This year, the parking lot brought in a little over $100,000 in revenue. That's all new revenue that really was just established a couple years ago when we implemented the plan to move the road and make that a parking lot. The construction that's underway now will expand the parking lot, make it a little bit broader, and also increase the capacity. We're estimating that we can have 94 dedicated parking spaces on the lot now. In our budget projections, we're projecting $150,000 in revenue for next year, considering the fact that the parking lot will be larger and fully functional, but it will also be, the park will be virtually complete by next spring. So we're anticipating that this will be a very active parking lot. We have meters installed, pay stations installed at the lot. Cars pay $2 an hour to park there. And our current rental rate set by the board is $1,500 for a day of exclusive use of that parking lot. And what we do is we offer that to adjacent events. So if an event is coming into the festival space, we offer that to them exclusively. We shut down the parking lot to allow only their use of it, and then they pay the county $1,500 per day for that use. And that makes up for the fact that we're estimating probably around $1,200 a day just in parking fees on that lot currently. The question has come up here recently in our Park O&M committee regarding our fees for next year. There was some discussion earlier this year about expanding the parking lot and increasing that rental rate for events. We've talked about even up to $2,500 for exclusive use of that parking lot. It came up recently in the Park O&M committee because Mayor Blaze is already talking to events for next year. Those events that want dedicated, exclusive use of the parking lot would like some clarity and some final, determination as far as what that rental rate will be. I know the Park O&M committee had decided and recommended that it stay at the $1,500, per day. But I described to them that that would have to come back through Public Works, since it's this committee that maintains that parking lot. And it is exclusively, county property. There is no other shares of other municipalities in it. So I bring that up for discussion. One thing to consider is if we have exclusive use of the parking lot, we lose that revenue, which you know, can vary, but certainly on week end days during the summer, that lot is completely full of cars paying $2 an hour. And we will have 94 spaces next spring. So we're easily gonna be generating $1,800, $1,900 a day, maybe more, for the longer duration parking, on that parking lot.
What do you recommend, Jeff? You know, you gotta guide us a little bit into this.
Well, I'll just say that it is a revenue that we may not recoup that revenue, through an event fee. There is, I understand the mayor's position in that the events feel that their events, the critical, success of their events, or their success is critically linked to the ability to park close to the event. And that's where they have wanted to have control of the parking lot, so that they can guarantee somebody coming to the event can actually get close enough to the event and not have to, you know, park at other lots or park on the street in the village. So I know Mayor Blaze has been in contact with multiple events stating that they really need use of the parking lot, but they felt that beyond the $1,500 would be too high of an expense for them.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I guess initially I was thinking that, the loss of revenue was due to, obviously the cost of $2 an hour, which is beyond me. I don't understand how it's that high and people are actually paying that, but if that is the case, it is a supply and demand issue. So you can not keep it up to $2,500, but can you go up to $2,000, meet somewhere in the middle? I mean, if they're paying, I think we should bank on it. That's just my thought.
the only comment I made, that's what the biggest problem we had this summer was parking. And that's what we got a lot of complaints about, people had to park too far away. Does it, you know, we've gotta take each one of these events in hand. Does it pay to let the event get the advantage of it, or does it pay to let people park there? And that's the question, basically. And I for one, my own opinion is, I think we should leave it alone this year coming. This will be the first full year that we're gonna see what really goes on down there. I just think, like you said,
How many events are we, how many events?
he's got, how many has he
What
got?
I think-
would we be losing out as far as revenue?
I don't know how many events want the dedicated parking. He has several that are asking now, where they have applications in to rent the festival space. He has them kind of in the calendar, but they want it, before they execute and, send in their deposits, they wanna make sure they know what the cost is to the parking lot. I know he has 3 right now that are saying, I gotta know right away what the cost is gonna be. This past year, the only exclusive use we had of the parking lot was, Americade, and they paid the $1,500 a day, they had a concert in the park, and they wanted dedicated, you know, parking for their participants, you know, through fees. Their participants used the parking lot, and they also used it to store some vehicles and trucks for the event, so. We can, I don't know how many rentals there will be where this will actually become a problem. I only know what the mayor's been telling me is there's a few of the events that happened this year, they blamed the lack of parking on the failure of the event and the lack of participation in the event, and that they had an event and nobody showed up, and the complaints were that they couldn't park because the parking lot was full. So I guess, you know, the good news is the parking lot's full. So it's a good, if you're gonna have a problem in a tourist town, that's, I guess, a preferred problem to have, is that too many people wanna come, and you're struggling to accommodate all the people that wanna come to the village in town of Lake George. So, there are a lot of changes going on. The park will be virtually constructed, in the spring. The parking lot will be fully constructed out. There'll be very little, additional work to be done, next year, really just ancillary work on the parking lot. Maybe the striping gets done early in the spring, and some of the, lamp posts go in early in the spring. The park should be complete, and certainly next season will be a good, indicator for what we should expect in the future. But I anticipate there being festivals and events virtually every weekend during the summer season. We had that almost this year, and the park was under construction. It was, you know, construction equipment and piles of material all over the place, and we still had a very full, event season.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but it's almost a missed opportunity. I mean, we say that we don't have money for certain projects and things like that, and people wanna increase the tax, but this is an avenue, I think, where, I mean, most of the tourists would be paying a lot of it.
Helen?
We use the parking revenue to fund certain things now, correct? Can somebody refresh me, because we use our parking revenue for so many different things. At this point, I think I've gotten confused as to what exactly we are using this revenue for.
The revenue specific to the Westbrook parking lot goes back into the general fund. So it is not dedicated. There was discussion in the past about dedicating it to roads or dedicating it to other purposes, but it is not dedicated to the park development. It's not dedicated to roads. It goes back into the general fund, and it can be used as however the county wants.
So essentially, there's nothing depending on this source of revenue. So say we left it at 1,500, we wouldn't potentially be cutting something short in funding if we didn't make out as well as we planned on revenue.
Basically, right, yeah.
Right, and I don't believe the impact to the budget, as far as our budget estimates, will be, I mean, we might wanna adjust that a little bit, but if it remained at 1,500, we might be losing, you know, $500 a day on those days that an event actually wants exclusive use of it. So it depends on how many events want the exclusive use of it, as to what type of budgetary impact it would have on our revenue projections.
Mr. Taylor?
Keep it simple. You're telling us that if you don't have dedicated parking, then we're gonna make $1,800 a day. Is that true?
I think that's a good estimate, and maybe even more on, I mean, if there's 94 parking spaces, they will be full. If they're average, you know, even 10 hours a day, that's $20 per car times 100, that's almost $2,000, even if they're just full for 10 hours a day. As you know, in Lake George, the crowds start coming in early, and the village doesn't shut down until 3 a.m.
I would think that if they want dedicated parking, they're willing to pay a premium for it, and I'd suggest you go to the 2,000.
Seems like a compromise, I think, 'cause
2,000 a day?
yeah.
I'd make that a motion. We go to 2,000 a day.
Second by Matt. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed, so move it to 2,000 a day, yeah.
Okay, I'll do a resolution request specific to that. Don't have any referral items. I do have some just construction updates. The first photos I'll send around are actually of the parking lot we were just discussing. So the lot is under construction right now. Kubricki Construction won that bid, and they are proceeding rapidly. We do anticipate that they'll get the parking lot back to asphalt before the close of this construction season, and they've been moving very quickly, and really the project's going great so far. And then in the spring, they'll be back in to do the striping and some of the other ancillary work related to the project. So we'll be in great shape for Memorial Day weekend next year.
Thomas?
So the fees from the festival, space itself pay village.
Yes, that's a separate, funding revenue, separate code, and that goes into a deferred revenue account. That is dedicated to the maintenance of the park. Those are restricted in how that account is set up.
Also pays the other side, the loan, or the loan.
Yes, the, south parcel, where you'll see on that picture, that picture on page 24, I think it was, you'll see that south parcel where all the wetlands are, that covers any of the expenses over there as well. And so far we haven't had, a need for additional funding into that. The revenue from the festivals, on the festival space, that revenue has been enough so far to, keep it going. Now, our maintenance, with the construction being complete, the maintenance effort is going up as well, and we've kind of budgeted that, going into next year. For the, the bathroom building is complete now, and we'll have all the other features of the park complete.
Mr. Chairman, did I see your hand up? Kevin?
Yeah, I was just curious, how many spots, you have to answer that.
Yeah, there's 94 spots, there's 89 general spots and 5 handicapped, one of which is van accessible. For certain events, even if they don't have exclusive use of the parking lot, we may have to block off a few parking spaces. There are a few right near the main entrance that for bigger trucks or bigger events getting into the festival space, we might lose a few spots for special events, but.
How do we plan on parking? Can somebody answer that? I know everywhere you go to an event, we pay parking, but we built the space, we're bringing these festivals, now we're crashing about parking?
Some of the early concepts that were reviewed had a dedicated parking lot on the parcels. We did have some of the early concepts, and say again?
It was on the other side though, wasn't it?
No, there was some of the concepts for the festival space included a smaller festival area and some parking right on the festival space itself. And I think at the time, because I remember the discussions and the direction that, both the village and the county board went was, we didn't wanna limit the size of events and have those parking areas, a paved parking lot on the festival space.
You only got 95 spots on Westbrook Road, right? Is that what I understand?
There will be, once we finish construction,
95 spots.
and those didn't exist before this project even started.
2 people per car. So you're taking in you have parking for maybe 190 people. It's always gonna be an issue, right? Right?
Yep.
Build a parking lot.
Well, there's been, well, I
No,
hope,
but I mean, it's always gonna be an issue. So
don't
you
laugh,
know,
because there's been discussions about a parking garage.
How much are they paying us to rent the area?
The festival space, rates they're running the $1,500 a day for the festival space too.
Seems like this is always gonna be a problem.
Well,
So
I've talked with the mayor some about, and certainly Supervisor Dickinson is making his efforts on the roads that he has control of. He's adding a parking lane. There's already one roughed in, if you've been down Westbrook Road, along the south parcel, along the battlefield. There's a parking lane roughed in there in gravel, so people are already parking on Westbrook Road in that. And then in the spring, they'll be paving that up to a new sidewalk that the county's putting in.
I'm with Matt, I mean, if we're gonna have events there, you gotta give people parking.
The issue really is not gonna get solved in that immediate vicinity because of the restrictions with the battlefield and the environmental restrictions on the south parcel. There's only so much space in that immediate area, so I think it is something where a dedicated municipal lot with shuttles or some ability to transport people in the village, that's really eventually the only thing that will solve it, is a dedicated municipal lot somewhere either within walking distance or with a shuttle service.
Jeff?
Yes.
You said there were 5 handicap parking spots?
Yes.
Will those be, if it's part of a festival event, will those be left handle that? I mean,
They
you
would-
don't wanna have
the
times,
require-
but
Right, the requirement for, handicap parking would be if it's a public lot, if it's closed for exclusive use at the time, it would be up to the event. It would be up to the event, so if there were handicapped people participating in the event, presumably they would be the spaces they would use.
The only comment I mean, I know it's a ridiculous comment, but it was too bad we couldn't work with the state for a little bit of that battlefield. Then you could put your little two-level parking garage there. Would
Mr.
help
Chairman, that
the-
was a ridiculous statement.
Thank you, Mr. Sokol, I appreciate that. All right, moving on. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, the other, I'll just, send around some photos of our recent, paving projects. County Route 19, Umstedville Road, County Route 48, Trout Lake Road, County Route 4, Glen Ethol High Street in Thurman, Bay Road, and Country Club Road. And the good news, we're very close to completing our, production paving, where our bigger, paving projects, and then we've got a lot of, smaller work to do. But the end of this season's been a very, very busy for our construction crews, but we're in good shape.
Is that Ellisonville Road done now?
I think we have some driveway transitions and some of the shoulder work, but it's paved, yes. There's still a section that hasn't been paved, there's still more work to be done,
That's
but
what I'm asking.
we've completed the 2015 project virtually. There's one more section that needs to be done, I think it's on our schedule for next year.
All right, any questions on the pavement for Jeff? Mr. Chairman, sir?
Yeah, a question on Umstedville Road. Did we ever get that area where, the gentleman emails us about, was that area ever?
That section's been reconstructed, and, he's been emailing me about his driveway transition, but he understands our scheduling and,
So you didn't,
so.
you finally got to that one area?
Right, that project was funded this year, and then there's one more section that's in the current plan for next year. So, at the end of next year, Umstedville Road will have been substantially, reconstructed and paved its entire length within Warren County. And then we'll be ready to start at the bottom end again, start all over.
All right, no other questions, privilege of the floor, anybody? Yes, sir.
Is there any, update on the span? I know, did you put that out to bid, the Mill Pond Bridge, the bridge over?
Yes, I think the bridge is out now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, we do have some additional engineering work that has to get done with the condition of the abutments and our structural, survey that was done in determining they need some major rehab. Now that we have the bridge out, we really need, the engineers to finalize their plan, and then, the bridge is out, but it hasn't been awarded yet, and we may have to amend that bid based on the work that has to get done on the abutments. So, right now, we'll be looking at a spring replacement. It's not gonna happen before then. The question will be how much of our abutment rehab work we can get done over the winter. If we get a mild start to the winter, we might be able to start some of that concrete work. Otherwise, it'll defer until the spring. So it is proceeding, and getting the bridge out, was really the next step for us. So now we're in good shape to determine what exactly is needed.
Jeff, can I see those? All right, any other questions? Okay, move into, solid waste now.
First one is for the disposal contract. And depending on how each town decides to go as far as, the combination of the disposal rates and the hauling combination, it looks like we would be doing contracts with every vendor on this.
Stepped on the suitcase.
Now it's ruined.
I'll replace it. And here are the hauling contracts, and that would only require a contract with Waste Management and, Casella.
I do have copies if you, if
Oh.
you're sure.
And then the last one is just the electronics waste that we need to discuss after the other two. You have the electronics too? Okay, so as far as the disposal, I'll start with that one. Those were the first two tab sheets I handed out. As I said, when I analyzed each town and the combination of the disposal and the hauling fees, every one of these vendors were low, depending on where they fell in each town. So I think today we need to authorize agreements with, all 6 of them. And as far as, I just wanted to bring up the bulk metal because I didn't provide that in your analysis. But when I looked at the rates, bid by Casella, they are in line with what the scrap metal dealers are quoting right now. DPW is getting a quote of, 4 cents per pound, and Casella's at .0475. So if you wanted to award the bulk metal under this contract, we could, and then just, you know, each town can select whether they want to, participate or not. I mean, it's all part of the bid anyway, so if we award to all 6 of these, it would be included in the contract. But I just wanted to make note of that. And I'm not sure, I believe the committee has to authorize or adopt a resolution authorizing intermunicipal agreements with each of the towns. Is that, or towns, is that correct, Paul?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the second part of this. Moving on to the hauling, as I said, we would authorize contracts with Casella and Waste Management. In the email I sent to most of you, it said, I stated that I was trying to negotiate those haul rates down. The vendors were not willing to budge on that. So the rates that I gave you are what they are. Does anybody have any questions on those before I get into the electronics?
Julie, we're doing this for a countywide,
Correct.
so once the county approves whatever,
The county will enter into the contract with the vendors, and then
Vendors.
we have the
Have vendors.
intermunicipal agreement with the towns.
okay.
But you're responsible for payment of all of your invoices. We have nothing to do with that. So we're just basically administering the contracts on behalf of the
We
town.
can take care of the payments, okay.
Did everybody have a chance to look at their cost comparisons and the actual low vendors by your towns? Because I have extra copies here if anybody needs. That's yours, yep. Chester. You know, some of the towns will see a savings. Some are going up. And that's why I tried to negotiate the, haul rates, because it's mainly based on that. if Martin were here, I think he would say, before he can do the contracts with these vendors, we need to know from each of the towns how you want us to proceed and what commodity you want to select with each vendor. Just like last year, I think a lot of you circled what you wanted a contract for, and Martin actually attached that right to the contract with a vendor. So. And then, with regard to the electronics, I was so happy when we got our bids in. Say with, you know, a vendor that's willing to pay for electronics other than CRTs and monitors. They were going to take the TVs for free. However, yesterday morning, I got an email from Evolution saying that and here's the term he used, their downstream glass buyer, they can no longer use. They now have to transport that glass to Canada, which is going to cost them significantly more than it currently does. So basically, they can't hold their bid as they submitted it. Our options are we can go to the next lowest bidder and not get that $110 per ton and pay for the CRTs, or we can rebid it and hope that everybody sharpens their pencil. So that's a committee decision. I can't decide that.
So none of the others are providing any credit
Correct.
from the industry,
Correct.
which, according to law, they're supposed to provide disposal of certain types of electronics. Like I noticed that Evolution initially said $110 ton rebate, and then but then they said, but they'll take the CRT monitors, televisions at no cost.
Correct.
All of the others are putting a cost on.
Correct. And some of it's significant.
It is, but I guess my question is, under state law now, I assume it's state law, how, are they even allowed to make these proposals? Because we're supposed, I think under state law, the non-CRT electronics is supposed to be zero cost. The industry is supposed to pay to get rid of it, if I'm understanding it correctly.
I'd have to check into that.
We had a discussion on, if you follow what I'm saying, in other words, that we had a discussion of this in a previous committee meeting, and so now what I'm wondering is I think I understand the bids here, but now I'm wondering whether they can even offer, and we can even sign a contract relative to the new disposal laws. Are you following what I'm saying?
Oh, you're right.
I'm curious now as to, in other words, the bid that apparently has been withdrawn would seem to me, based on what I know, and I don't claim to be an authority on this, would be the only one that I would say was compliant with the law, which is that those things the industry is supposed to pay for, they'll provide as a credit, right? And against the cost down below, right?
Mm-hmm.
The tonnage down below, which is, because there are things that the industry doesn't pay for, right? Large TVs, or whatever.
Right, they charge by the pound.
They charge by the pound. How are the other vendors accounting for that, I guess is my question, or are they?
I don't think they are. And these are all registered vendors with DEC as electronics recyclers. So if they were required to bid that way.
You would think they would have.
Exactly. So I'll have to check with Martin to see how that's interpreted.
This is getting,
I know it's an issue.
well, and it's becoming a very complicated issue.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've got a pile of, monitors growing at my transfer station and with no way to dispose of them. And so it's, I don't know, in Horicon, what do you?
Well, we've almost made it to the bold line. So I think everybody.
Well, if we have to pay for
Within one
disposal,
county
you stay
is
on your
coming.
side.
They're building a tunnel under there, on a rail
I'm
tunnel.
thinking about getting out of the government business and getting into the TV recycling business. I have so many. I think they're coming to our landfill or something, our recycling center. I mean, I've seen, I don't know. I've seen TVs in people's yards that weren't there the week before, and then they disappear, so obviously they're coming to our landfill. And there's a lot of people that, I don't know.
Well, I thought I was perplexed a little bit after the last discussion. Now, based on these bids, I'm totally perplexed.
Well, I mean, if the committee wishes to do so, you can reject all these bids today, and I'll, get that answer. I think it's a positive thing that we're bidding this, because we did get that one bid that seems to be compliant. You know, it's too bad they had to say they couldn't abide by the original terms, but I still think it's gonna benefit the towns if we do this again.
Well, we have to clear our transfer station, so it would seem to me
They're very interesting.
that even if we had to do something on the short term, negotiate a short-term service while we figure all this out with the, this contract would have been for what term?
Starting January 1st,
But it
and
had
running like,
But it had renewables,
oh,
right?
yeah,
Just like the
2 years.
waste, 2 years.
Yeah.
So that would be one of my concerns right now, is to tie into a contract that, one, I'm not sure the advisability of doing that, but at the same time, we all have monitors that we need to dispose of.
well, I mean, you guys can do something on your own until January 1st. I mean, you can call and get quotes from some of these vendors. DEC has a very extensive list of recyclers. Unfortunately, when I sent out the bids, half of the mail came back. They're registered on DEC, but they're no longer in business. But I can certainly pass along the information. You can call the vendors that did submit bids already, see if you can negotiate something for your town through the end of the year. But if I rebid this service, I don't think we're gonna have anything in place till January 1st.
So like, for example, JGS, I don't want to monopolize this, Mr. Chairman, but, I mean, I'm just looking at this, JGS is saying is that they want 25 cents a pound for CRT television monitors only, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we would have to pay to dispose of, correct? Then you have the, they're saying that all other electronics are free of charge.
Meaning they're making money on those electronics without the town getting anything back.
Right, but I'm not sure, I'm wondering, that may be compliant, is what I'm saying.
Evelyn?
All right, just for the sake of moving along, I think I'd like to make a motion that we reject all these bids and that Julie, go back out and rebid.
Just for the electronics.
Just for the electronics, to see what we get. Hopefully, Evolution will resubmit and maybe we'll have something valuable there.
And all right, you got a second on that? Okay, stands well. One other question, I mean, now Innovation's gonna supply storage boxes at each transfer station.
Correct.
That's a biggie too. I don't see
Yeah,
that on
we made that part of the
I don't see that on the other ones.
If they had bid that, it would have been on the tab sheet.
So I'm not seeing,
Yeah, like JGS said, the collection and storage of materials must be done by the municipality.
right.
I mean, they all have comments, or some of them have comments below. But we did put that in the specifications, that they would require the storage boxes for palletizing. I mean, it's gonna involve your employees boxing them up, having them ready for pickup, but I think it's gonna be an easier process than maybe what you're doing now. They're gonna get you on regular pickup schedules so that you're not overflowing. You know, if you need them to come once every 2 weeks, they can do that. And they're fairly local, I mean, they're out of Johnstown, they have a deconstruction facility right at their plant there, so I think that's why they're able to, offer the proposal that they did.
Ron, do you have a weight machine at your transfer station?
We do not, and that's,
That makes a big difference too, because if they supply you with pallets or boxes, you can, like, we can weigh them.
Mhm.
We know what we're shipping out, not what they're telling us.
I mean, just, if we rebid, I mean, that's one way to go. That doesn't always ensure that you're gonna get better bids, as you know, but I think I can support the motion. It's just, for example, it would appear as if some of these bids aren't really even compliant.
Correct.
So, I don't know that they know they're not compliant. Some of them are in pounds, some of them talk about tonnage.
Mhm.
It would be good if we could get them all on also, if we could just let them know, we need the comparison to be apples and apples here.
Right, and
We shouldn't
can-
have to be converting this in our head as we're looking across this spreadsheet. Not that that's a difficult thing on that item, but any of the items here. It looks to me like some tooled this the way they chose to tool it.
Right, and sometimes it's impossible to get the vendors to submit a bid that's compliant with how we want it structured. So we would automatically, I can state in the specs, if you do not bid it this way, you're not gonna be considered. And that's, I think, my only option.
I mean, like, I look at some of these other ones, 25 cents a pound, 30 cents a pound, 35 cents a pound. I mean, we're charging 16 now, and I'm hearing it.
Mhm.
Some of these old televisions that have been laying around for years, and, us little towns, where they're gonna go, on the side roads. And we'll be picking them up and have to be getting rid of them again, so. This is important right here, so. We just get the best deal we can possibly get. All right, we got a motion and a second to reject these bids. Any other comments? All in favor?
We are
Oh,
rebidding as well.
Rebid,
Wanted to make sure.
rejecting these, but rebidding.
Electronics.
Just electronics.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed. Anything else,
Did you make a motion to award the other contract?
I think we need to, no, we didn't.
Yeah, I think we're all satisfied with this, what we see here to award the other contracts?
I am.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Ms. Wood? Any questions on it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Julie, can we get it separated now of what ones we're gonna take? Be so much easier?
I'm sorry.
I think he's referencing,
Right,
you should pick up.
right, so you have your analysis in front of
Right,
you that
right.
has highlighted all the ones that would be your best deal. So you just circle which
That's
ones.
the way you're gonna do it, circle it,
I think that's the easiest,
okay.
and that worked for Martin last year for the contract.
All right, any other questions? Sorry. Chairman, I'm sorry back there, I don't see you.
Now I forget now, how's this work? We send them back and then we're gonna get a contract?
You will get, actually, each of the towns now have, well, I'm not sure when you wanna do it, but
Does this start January first?
it does.
Okay.
So your next step would be to, through
Approve
the
it
town
on the town board.
board, the intermunicipal agreement
Right.
with the county. That's all you have to do, and provide us with what vendor you wanna go with for each, form of solid waste.
Then you guys take care of it.
We do the rest,
Just like the roads, huh?
just like that.
I got an
Okay.
email about the roads accreditation.
Oh.
All right. Any other questions? Motion adjourned? Evelyn, Donovan, or adjourned?